All right, it's that time of week again where I drop the weekly power rankings. This week, I bring you the Week 10 power rankings where we talk about the teams that are rising and the teams that are falling towards the bottom in our league. This week, much like any other week, we have Tyler Miles sitting at the number one spot in our league with a 7-2 record. This team put up points again. I'm getting sick and tired of saying it. This team going forward is going to look to lock up that first round playoff bye. I think they will easily do it. Tyler Miles will probably be the number one seed in our playoffs this year. Does not mean they are the favorite to win the Shiva, but they will be the number one seed. Our next place team is Ryan Naughton. I put Ryan Naughton here because he has been here in weeks past. He has been our number one team in the past, and he survived a scary week without Saquon Barkley. I've expressed my fear over Saquon Barkley in the past. With the Giants just not being a good team and down by a lot in most games. But Saquon Barkley, nevertheless, helps this team out a ton. He survived this week. He's at a 6-3 record. If this team gets another win, it looks like he will lock up a playoff spot. Our next place team is myself at a 5-4 record. I am the third team to be holding a consistent ranking on the power rankings, and I will tell you why. The last 4 weeks for Kevin Davis, point totals 150, a league high, 139, a second place league high, 115, an off week because two of my players shit the bed. I had two guys on my bench go for over 20 points. So my team was still putting up points. And week 9, a league high with 151 points. I have been the top scorer in the league 3 times out of the last 4 weeks. My team is legit. I started off slow, but I am quickly building a playoff potential team. 5-4 record. I am looking to get 1 or 2 more wins to lock up a playoff spot. This team is looking good going forward. Our next place team is Cubby. I have been harsh on this guy, and for good reason. His roster has not been the greatest. He traded for some injured players. You know, injuries do happen. It's fantasy football. We've all been dealing with injuries. It just comes down to good management. But the thing is, I told Cubby his team would be fine if Cooper Kupp did come back and show that he still has a role in the Rams. This week, he did come back and he showed that he is starting potential. Another thing is, Cubby proved us all wrong. Alvin Kamara dropped a 30 burger this week in fantasy football, proving that he is almost the lead back and Mark Ingram is just non-existent. Alvin Kamara is looking good going forward. Dalvin Cook is now getting healthy. I don't know if Dalvin Cook will be a real force going forward, but Dalvin Cook definitely helps Cubby's team. This team is trending upwards, and it looks like Cubby has locked up a playoff spot. I guarantee this team will get 1 more win, which will solidify him into the playoffs. Our next place team is Drew Michael. This is a team that I'm worried about with a 6-3 record. This team is not great. Did not score a lot of points this past week with 94. A 6-3 record is on the verge of making the playoffs. The problem is Drew just does simply not have a good team. This team going forward needs 1 win. If they get 1 win, great, they're in. But I could see this team actually dropping the next few weeks. It could get lucky and get a win, but I don't think it'll even be a force in the playoffs. So right now I have him sitting here. Maybe in the future weeks he'll prove me wrong. Our next place team is Ross Davis at a 4-5 record. Ross's team is moving down because Cubby's team simply was moving up this week. I like Cubby's trends in his team. Ross's team, though, dropped to Tyler, the number 1 team in our league. I don't think Ross had a bad week. The only hit to Ross's team is AJ Green. Besides that, Ross's team still looks great. Tevin Coleman looks like he's involved more than ever in the Falcons offense. Julio Jones got in the end zone for the first time. Ross's team going forward looks good. 4-5 record, though, is definitely a scary spot to be in after I got a win this week. Ross is going to need at least 2 more wins. His schedule going forward, luckily, he does play Cubby twice. And I believe he plays Jake. I know I play Jake, and hopefully Ross is praying that I beat him. He's also praying that I beat Josh. But Russ's team going forward looks good. He might have to rely on some other people to get some wins. Jake Kerr, 4-5 record. He got a win this week. Jake Kerr's team dropped a average point total this week. I wasn't going to move him up a ton. I still think this team has good potential. But Jake is at that scary 4-5 record spot where he's going to need help from other teams in the league as well as win his games. His must-win games are against Matt Davis next week in Week 10, which Matt Davis is below him, but Jake just simply needs wins at this point. If he wins out, he will make the playoffs. Our next place team is Josh Kerr at a 4-5 record. After putting up a decent point total this week, it simply just wasn't enough because Kevin fucking just lit it up. Josh Kerr is sitting also at the scary 4-5 record spot. As you can see, it's going to be a battle between all these 4-5 teams as we have 3 of them to make the playoffs. 1 or 2 people are not going to be happy in this situation of not making the playoffs because they've all shown great potential. But sadly, there are 4 teams that don't make the playoffs. Our next place team is Matt Davis. After dropping yet another game, he sits at 3-6. This looks to be our second worst team in the league this season. Matt Davis, after winning the Sacco last year, is just not having another great season. And our last place team, we all know who that is at Ryan Smith, 0-9. He is looking awful. He scored a, well, not a league low. Cubby set that. But a second place to league low this season. Ryan Smith did not have a great week and does not look good going forward. Now I want to talk about the 5 takeaways from Week 9, an exciting week in our fantasy football league we would expect nonetheless. My first point is Ryan Smith is on the verge of a record. Congratulations to Ryan Smith. He almost has locked up the worst record ever in our fantasy football league. He sits 0-9 at the moment. The worst record in our league ever was set by Tom Lindholm 4 years ago, sitting 2-10. I do not see Ryan Smith getting 2 wins, maybe a win, definitely not getting 3 wins. So he might tie the worst record or he might lock up the worst record. Granted, we did play 1 less week back in the day. We started the playoffs a week earlier. But, I mean, that just gives Ryan Smith more chance to lock up 2 wins. But I don't see it happening. Congratulations to Ryan Smith. Point number 2, more locked up spots. These are not for sure locked up spots. These are kind of predictions of what I think will shape up. These are more than likely locked up spots. I would say an 80% chance these spots are locked up. Cubby got a win this week. I think he is locked into the playoffs. Ryan Naughton with a win this week. I think he is locked into the playoffs. With Matt Davis losing, I think he locked up a spot out of the playoffs. And a pretty interesting one here is I actually think I locked up a playoff spot this week. I sit at 5-4. I sit a game ahead of everybody sitting 4-5. Everybody sitting 4-5 I have beaten. And I have beaten Ross twice. I play Josh and Jake again. Even if I lose to them when I play them again, I am pretty confident that I will hold a higher point total over the whole course of the season over them. Right now I'm about 60 points ahead of both of them. So that puts me ahead on all tiebreakers of everybody sitting 4-5, and I hold a game over their heads as well. I like my chances to be in the playoffs. Next point, Josh continues his streak of going win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. If Josh wants to make the playoffs, he's going to have to break this streak. History would tell us that he's going to get a win this week against Drew, but he needs a win that following week if he wants to make the playoffs. Josh kind of controls his own destiny going forward. He's going to have to win, I think, 2 or 3 games to make the playoffs. Our next point is Cubby is hot and cold, yes and no. He's simply wrong and he's right. Cubby was right about Alvin Kamara when I was watching the Saints this weekend. I know they're playing the Rams, and the Rams defense allows an average of 33 points a game to opposing offenses. But every time I saw Mark Ingram run the ball, I just go, oh, that was decent, but Alvin Kamara could have done better, and then they give it to Alvin Kamara, and it's a touchdown. Alvin Kamara got 3 touchdowns. He put up 33 points. Alvin Kamara looks like he's just going to make Mark Ingram non-existent. He's simply just so much better. Mark Ingram is slowing down. And Cubby was right about James Conner, partially. I simply don't think Le'Veon Bell is going to come back, so we'll never really know. But James Conner, I saw a stat that Ben Roethlisberger plays better when James Conner's on the field. Their Steelers winning percentage is better with James Conner on the field over Le'Veon Bell. And James Conner's yards per carry is actually like 0.2 over Le'Veon Bell. It's not much, but it's still more. I think if Le'Veon Bell even did come back, he'd take on a secondary role that really wouldn't give him that much yardage. But Cubby says these ridiculous statements that are either way out in left field or they're a home run. He also said that his easiest matchup to predict was Josh against me this week. I destroyed Josh. My team is fantastic. I have great players on my team. Josh may have had a few good matchups, but just simply put, I have the better team by a long shot. I wouldn't bet against me that week at all. Christian McCaffrey played Tampa Bay. You knew that was going to be a home run. Michael Thomas played the Rams that allow 33 points a game. So you knew that was going to be a shootout. Michael Thomas had a huge game. And Fitzpatrick was on Josh's team, and Fitzpatrick loves O.J. Howard, and I have O.J. Howard. So every touchdown that Fitzpatrick passed to O.J. Howard, I got more points than Josh. And Josh had the wide receiver that Fitzpatrick doesn't throw the ball to. So literally every time Fitzpatrick threw to O.J. Howard, it helped me twice as much and hurt Josh twice as much. I don't see what Cubby was getting at. That was just a ridiculous statement. It's good to prove him wrong and just see him in the dust. I take Cubby's predictions with a grain of salt. He's sitting below 500 or right about at 500 for predicting our league matchups. You might as well just flip a coin and see and predict the games like Cubby does. Point number 5, I want to talk about the standings going forward and a big Week 10. Week 10, we have a lot of close matchups. We have me against Ryan Naughton. Ryan Naughton sits a game ahead of me, but if I beat Ryan Naughton this week, I move ahead of him in the standings. That would be big because I then have a chance to lock up the bye week in the playoffs. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I would have a better chance of Ryan Naughton. So I could kick Ryan Naughton out of locking up that playoff bye spot. It would make me ahead of Ryan Naughton in the standings. And then another matchup that we have is Matt Davis against Jake Kerr. This is a big matchup just because if Jake Kerr loses this game, I would take him out of the playoff race. Jake Kerr sits at 4-5 and he is battling a 3-6 team. He needs to win this game and needs to win a lot of games going forward. The other matchup that I want to talk about is Matt Samuelson against Ross Davis, the Cubby Bowl thing. The Cubby Bowl, is that what we call it? No, I think that's what Cubby named his own bowl that he participates in every year. Anyway, this matchup's just funny because these guys hate each other. They talk so much shit back and forth in the group me. This is going to be a great matchup this week. I don't think Ross, even though he plays Cubby twice, can knock Cubby out of the playoffs. I don't think that'll happen even if Ross beats him. But I do think that Cubby has a good chance of knocking Ross out of the playoffs, and that would just piss off Ross even more. I hope Cubby rubs it in his face, especially since Cubby's team is trending upwards. And our other matchup is Josh Kerr against Drew Michael. History shows that Josh will win this matchup, especially with a struggling Drew Michael team. But if Drew wins this matchup, he definitely solidifies his spot in the playoffs. And if Drew wins this game, it more than likely kicks Josh out of the playoffs. So this is an interesting match to watch out for too. It's definitely going to be an interesting Week 10. The only thing we don't care about is the Tyler and Ryan Smith matchup. That game holds no water whatsoever. That matchup is just going to suck. Nobody cares. It'll be a blowout. But that is looking ahead to Week 10. It was a great Week 9. And just remember that we only have 4 more weeks until it's playoff time. 4 more weeks. It is grind time. It is full throttle forward. Get ready for some intense games. this coming week and onward. That's all I have for week 10. Good luck to everybody. I wish you nothing but the worst.